last video, I talked much about India's mission that proved to be an abortive attempt at reaching the South Pole. Now, the good news is that this is the first time a commercial spacecraft has successfully landed on the moon's surface, the extreme southern pole, which has never been attempted before. And US NASA has been really into this domain for almost 70 to 80 years since the first step on the moon, and people still don't believe that it could have happened. There are some of the naysayers, they think that probably nobody reached the moon. But why we keep wondering why the US had dropped the very idea of, and why this, after 60 years of hiatus, they have once again initiated this mission, and which is commercially viable, and it has allowed a private commercial company named Intuition to carry the payload of five essentials apparatus instruments. And probably Americans had lost interest in, because earlier they were vying and they were into the, they wanted to be the first contender to step on the moon, and really they made it with so many unsuccessful Apollo landing missions every time. But this time they have been very lucky, and this has been done with the efforts of a purely commercial venture, and NASA has put a couple of millions on its, and in fact it has allowed Canada to carry its camera for selfie, and then there are other nations also contributed, and it has made a mark in the sense that there's so many firsts this time. It's the first time that it's using a cryogenic fuel, that's a mixture of methane and oxygen, a relatively cleaner fuel. Earlier it was a bit, filthy kind of, and they had to negotiate with the quality of. So this is another good news that paves the way for commercial flights with cheaper and more sustainable and viable source of fueling. And future missions in lunar surface would augur well in the sense that it will offer more possibilities, because it's widely believed that in southern pole, which is supposed to be the toughest landing spot, India tried, Japanese, they also tried a month ago, but they failed the last minute. The Chinese had also experimented with, they ventured into this cryogenic fuel, and they weren't successful. It is blasted off. Then there are other nations that always, because moon has always attracted us, because it offers a lot of possibilities, and a whole hordes of immense possibilities, because of the frozen ice in the southern pole, which could pave the way for next missions to Mars and other interplanetary odysseys. And fortunately, this mission is itself called Odyssey. And the Intuition, it is carrying the payload, and although there was a snag for a couple of minutes because they lost the contact from the ground, it's an unmanned mission, and there was no signal beeping. Slowly it gained back with very thin transmission, and then it got back to its original anticipated or expected signals, with selfies on board, and with clear soft landing. Although the mission appeared to be a stroke of good fortune. It was good luck that they had already initiated the landing and the process a bit earlier than expected, and everything went fine. Everything is immaculately planned, and it has lived up to the expectations of everyone. So lots of cheering for those on ground, and it's definitely charts out a new mission to the other missions which are like, because Moon is going to be a station from where the missions into other stars and interplanetary domains will be undertaken by commercial giants like this Intuition company. Then we have Falcon X, and we have so many other commercial ventures, and NASA has put a bet of a couple of millions on it. So this intuitive machine it took off from Houston, Texas on Thursday, and it has already made a mark. Neil deGrasse Tyson, one of America's most famous astrophysicists, believes mission this kind should have been happening decades ago. That means it's a long overdue, with a passage lapses of almost 60 years. Probably US could have done it much earlier, but it is surprising that they never showed any renewed interest in going back to the moon. India showed its interest. It had its Chandrayaan-3. It successfully landed with almost soft landing there, but unfortunately disappeared after a day or two. But they had already made a mark in successfully using all the other stages, and they proved that with the kind of domestic ingeniously built, technologically not so advanced and cheaper, and I mean somehow make do or ad hocism kind of, they could successfully be there. Although unfortunately we never heard about it again. And being an Indian, I felt so proud. I made a video on that. Now this is really a remarkable feat on the Americans, because for the first time, and not just to begin with, is going to be there are going to be ample opportunity in space, given the level of funding needed to get, because funding is a big issue when it comes to spacefaring, because any failed mission costs millions of dollars to. So private companies, they're always afraid of, and they keep experimenting with employing thousands of people. So thanks to the NASA and the US government that has put its stakes on those private commercial ventures and the firms that made it possible. And no wonder that NASA's chief immediately congratulated the mission. This is, I would call it Moon Race 2.0, because there is a rush now. Probably there is vast energy sources to be made available, and if water could be harvested for drinking, for colonizing, for all the stuff to be carried over to, because we have now the unmanned space, reusable rockets with heavy payloads from Falcon X, and there have been almost 70 attempts at, and all of them successful. Most of them are successful. So it's really, it's maybe we can have an amusement park and tourist visiting site is cheap enough. So it offers avenues for commoners, for even those who have been partially or enamored of or obsessed with any kind of space missions in their lifetime. So this is definitely going to private entities, they're going to build, launch, and operate the missions on a larger scale. And it takes a lot of courage, because NASA this time had purchased room on Odysseus. This is it's a joint venture from the government to private entity, and some of the equipment helped the robot craft overcome technical issues. So if NASA had not been involved with the last minute glitch, the snag that was almost had ruined the hopes of its successful soft landing in the extreme southern pole of the moon. Probably is the NASA's decades of technical know-how and its team of so it's like in this particular case, NASA has given 118,093 pounds just to carry some of its essential toolkit. I would call it toolkit because they would be needing them for the future explanations. And the arm which claims to open access to the moon to the progress of humanity was actually funded by Stephen Altimus and Tim Crane, all of whom have significantly lower profile than the likes of Elon Musk and Richard Branson. I mean, Elon Musk is knee deep into it. He's already invested heavily on missions and unmanned aircraft and reusable rockets, and he has been really successful with hundreds and thousands of abortive attempts. And so who owns the moon? Like many firms will see the risk and cost involved reason enough to remain earthbound. I mean, like it's a time for big companies to explore possibilities of curating, harnessing, and also mining whatever possibilities of enriched minerals being trapped in the. So it's much hyped and state-bound space race. The mid-late 20th century has already begun. So only a handful of countries have successfully landed on the surface of the moon, and that's not true in the southern tip. That's the polar region of Soviet Union, China, India, and Japan, to name of these 4, 5 those who have gate crashed into this exclusive club of space exploration, space faring countries. This Odysseus communication being facilitated by UK company, which has several large radio dishes capable of picking up signals from the moon's surface. So surprisingly and ironically, everything was being manned from the ground, and I was really stunned to know that this technical glitch of the software that was fixed from the Earth, and they uploaded this software to get the landing going in the last minute. So this kind of technology with the software and AI integration to the moon space explorations, that's wonderful, and it's a sustainable lunar economy, and it's going to pave the way for a long-term lunar missions after missions. And the investors, all the private investors and companies, they will be really interested in meeting the challenges in the foreseeable future. So it's going to be a thriving lunar economy, and it's going to pave the way for even smaller nations. Could be the Middle East, it could be the those countries that have never ever fared better, and those never think of even in doing any kind of investment in such kind of non-profitable. I mean, so far it's non-profitable. The only thing is that we are gathering information, gathering data, and we are trying to have the algorithm to get to know that how far it's going to be practicable in digging those craters, and those how far those frozen ice can be melted, and how much. I mean, even the amount of. But it's likely that it's endowed with loads of minerals and all kind of and that will run to trillions of dollars. So obviously it's like a newfound riches for those smaller companies, and all those companies will be vying in the future to slice the cake. I mean, if it is really so promising. And moon is just could be a first tiny step towards a giant strides into space exploration that's not going to just be limited to these, orbiters of which are not so far compared to the other galaxy, and other, even our solar galaxy, all those other satellites, and well, all the planets have already been almost all the information have been gathered. Uranus and Neptune, and of course Mars are attracted the most. Why? Because of the red planet, because of the possibility of human entity, or some sort of life really found there in any form, and it could be any form. So this mission to prevent spacecraft sandblasting, we really don't know. I mean, like the space, these landers and robots, in robotics, they have to look for this, right kind of approaching, very slow, so that they don't get into the, smashing, and they don't have to endanger themselves into getting blasted. So scientifics think that they have to be very close to this frozen water, and could be, possibility could be of inhabiting and taking, batches after batches with manned crafts in future. And that's going to happen very soon, because once we have the, right kind of fuel, right kind of mechanism and software, and with those hydrogen and helium, which is supposed to be the best ones, there will be many more missions, and probably India is also going to muster up its courage once again to, with the same team, our own space agency, aeronautics space agency. This also has, in collision, in collaboration with the other agencies worldwide, and with the private investment, private owner. I mean, like in India, nobody's showing interest. No private company has ever even thought of, doing what NASA has done for the first time. So that's the difference that lies, venturing into. So if these missions are taken in combined efforts and concerted efforts, and all the at least 5 or 6 nations in China, Japan, India, US, and let's forget about Soviet Union for the time being, and we have Canadians. They are quite advanced in videographing, and because this intuition, they have taken the selfie, and it's like watching all the landing through your naked eyes. That's so brilliant that it tells you bit by bit, and in frames, and like actual frames and videos, and we really get thrilled. Although it didn't make so much of news as India's failed mission had made, because India trumpeted so much, and it was probably had claimed to be successfully got into deeper parts of southern, and probably it had good news first few hours, but following day it proved to be a bad omen for India. Well, the very best of luck to all those nations, including India, for a renewed new mission with a renewed vigor, and they've already launched some new missions also. So maybe hoping to see people making lunar tourism possible. Maybe not in my lifetime, maybe after my life, but it's going to happen sooner or later. Thank you so much.